Welcome to Mind Your Wellbeing, the programme that encourages you to take a positive approach to caring for your mental health and wellbeing. In this final session of the programme, we're going to look at how we can improve our resilience, which is vital to our mental health and wellbeing. In this session, you'll learn what resilience is and why we need it for our mental health and wellbeing. You'll learn how we can improve our resilience and how knowing and using our personal strengths can support our resilience and our mental health. So what is resilience? Well, one definition is the ability to persevere and adapt when faced with adversity or challenges in life. Resilience works for us in different ways. It helps us deal with the past, to cope with the present, and to look forward to the future. Resilience helps us to overcome and move on from difficulties or trauma in childhood. What we learn and experience as children can shape our adult lives. Resilience can help us to come to terms with difficulties that we might have experienced. It doesn't undo them, but it can help us to move forward from them. Resilience can also help us to steer through the day-to-day irritations that we might face, like an argument or a flat tire, maybe a toddler tantrum, or a rainy, miserable day. It means we can put these things in perspective and not let them ruin our day. When we are resilient, we are better able to bounce back from crisis or life events. Most of us will experience life events that can be hugely stressful at the time. For example, fear of COVID-19, a relationship breakdown, moving house or losing our job. Some events will challenge us even more, like serious illness or the loss of a loved one. Resilience can help us to come back from these stresses. Of course, it won't be easy and it will take time, but the more resilient we are, the more we're able to pick ourselves back up. You may have often heard the phrase, "he's back to himself." And this might be about someone who has recovered after a difficult time. So resilience helps us to come back. Resilience can help us to adjust and perhaps to face a new road than the one that we had planned for ourselves. Resilience isn't just about coping with the tough times. It can support us to reach out for new opportunities, to be more creative and enthusiastic about life. We don't limit ourselves because we are worried about getting it wrong or failing or not being able to cope. It really means we can open up our world to new experiences and to move forward. In addition to that, we are able to invest more in our relationships to make them stronger and more positive. We also experience more positive emotions. And you'll remember from session 3 how important positive emotions are to our mental health and well-being. As we unpack resilience a bit more, you'll see how it all links back to what we covered in previous sessions. It's the final part of the mental health and well-being jigsaw. So let's look more closely at resilience. We all have different levels of resilience. We all come from different life situations, different life experiences, which can impact on our resilience. If you're listening and thinking, "I don't really feel very resilient," the good news is you can change this. Our capacity for resilience isn't fixed. In other words, we can all increase our resilience. And in a moment, I will talk about how. We might feel more resilient in some areas of our life than others. For example, I might feel very confident dealing with difficulties at home, but much less able to deal with difficulties at work. And for another person, it might be the other way around. Being resilient doesn't mean we won't feel anxious or sad or that bad things won't happen, because that's part of life. But being resilient means that these emotions won't overwhelm us and that we know we will survive them. So resilient people still experience challenging emotions and tough times, but they have developed the capacity to cope and adapt. How can we improve our resilience? We know there are certain things we can work on that does improve our resilience. These are what I call the building blocks of resilience. Each building block is important, and the more building blocks we develop, the more resilient we will be. Have a look at the building blocks. While this might seem like a long list, don't be put off by that. You probably have a lot of these strengths already. But as I go through them, you may recognize some areas that you want to look at, areas that you want to improve on or pay some attention to. As you can see, there are 10 building blocks in all. We're going to talk about all of them, but I will focus specifically on 3 of them. The first building block is empathy. Empathy is how we tune in to other people, understanding their feelings and their behaviours. This is important because it helps us to read cues and signals from others and helps us build strong connections and positive relationships. A sense of humour is really important, and it's a building block that we could easily overlook. Having a sense of humour means we don't take ourselves too seriously or see every situation as a crisis or a drama. Laughter is also good for our mental health. And we all know how good it feels to have a really good laugh. Another building block is having interests and purpose in life. Working towards a goal, no matter how small, with determination and effort, gives us a sense of achievement and success and helps us build resilience. It's important to be able to manage our emotions. This helps us cope when a challenge arises, and we are able to keep cool and stay calm in a crisis so we don't become overwhelmed. Let's focus on optimism for a minute. Resilience is underpinned by optimism. This is a positive outlook where we believe things will work out or get better. That sense of the glass half full. There is a wealth of research proving the importance of an optimistic outlook to our overall mental health and well-being. How optimistic are you? Do you tend to believe that things will generally work out? Or is there sometimes a but? If you find yourself often saying but, that might mean that you're seeing obstacles or believe that things won't work out. And that might indicate that this is an area that you need to do a little bit of work on. Self-control means managing our behaviours and responding well to situations as they arise. This gives us the opportunity to respond rather than react. And you might remember we talked about that in session 3. Problem-solving skills are an obvious building block for resilience. This means being able to draw on a range of coping skills and seeing solutions or ways of working things out when faced with challenges. It also means being able to recall how you coped in the past and to learn from those experiences. I'm going to look at the final 3 building blocks in more detail because these probably have the most impact on our resilience. In session 1, we talked about the importance of practicing self-care. Self-care is an essential building block for resilience. It's about the practices and activities that we do every day to support our mental well-being. To build resilience, we need to prioritise self-care. Remember the importance of the self-care toolkit? As you look at it, have a think about how your self-care is at the moment. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being not so good and 10 being doing very well, where is your self-care on the scale? Could it do with a little improvement? Realistic thinking is another essential building block of resilience. How we think is the most important influence on our resilience. How we interpret or respond to a situation will determine how we cope with it. The priority for resilience is basing our thinking on what is actually true. This is realistic thinking. We need to challenge our negative thoughts and establish what is real and what is based on anxiety or fear or maybe general pessimism. Like there's no point, or it won't work, or this is going to be a disaster. Remember session 2, which looked at the importance of understanding our thoughts? As Henry Ford once said, whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. That quote reminds us of the incredible power of our thoughts. If we think we can't do something or cope with the situation, then chances are we won't. We convince ourselves we're just not able to do it, or it's just not possible. We might think this regardless of whether it's true or not. On the other hand, if we can think more realistically, more positively, then the outcome can be very different. Now to the final building block, self-belief. Self-belief is where we can see ourselves positively and have confidence in our own abilities and strengths. We need to have beliefs that support resilience rather than ones that diminish it. Self-belief then helps our self-esteem, our self-confidence, and our overall resilience. Beliefs in general are ideas or perceptions that we hold, perhaps for a very long time, about who we are, what we can do, or how we should feel in a given situation. It's important for us to tune in to our beliefs so that we can work out whether they're supporting us or not. If you have generally positive beliefs and thoughts about yourself and others and the world in general, then you're probably quite optimistic that things will be okay, or if not, that you'll be able to deal with them. This can support your resilience, and this is the kind of thinking we want to encourage. So it's back to our thoughts again. In a few moments, we'll look more closely at what we call limiting beliefs and the negative thinking that can contribute to them. But first of all, I'd like you to have a look again at the building blocks for resilience and try to decide which area you would like to do a little bit of work on yourself. Let's look at limiting beliefs. Limiting beliefs are beliefs that we hold that may be negative or unrealistic about ourselves or others or about the world in general. They can hold us back and get in our way and really impact on our resilience. These are some limiting beliefs. I could never do that. I'm useless at interviews. It's better not to try than to make a fool of myself. I always get it wrong. If I fail, I won't be able to cope. Asking for help is a sign of weakness. As we look at the list, I'm sure you can understand why these kind of beliefs do not benefit our resilience. Challenging our thoughts is at the root of challenging the beliefs that limit us. This is a recap from session 2. If you haven't had a chance to look at it, maybe you would like to do that at some stage. We can try to challenge our negative thoughts to perhaps reach a more realistic view. The process has 4 brief steps, and they are: notice. Try to notice how you respond in certain situations and what these situations might be. Pause. Try to catch yourself in the moment and stall your thinking. Question. Now you can ask yourself some specific questions to examine what is true and what is not true, what is actually likely and what is unlikely to happen or to be possible. Then to reflect. You might now have realized something that could change your view and help you think or feel differently. Let's look at an example of one limiting belief. I always get it wrong. A belief like that is probably something you might have held for a long time. So how do you question that? Ask yourself, is it mine? Or is it something someone once told me and I still believe it? Is it true? Is it really true that you always get things wrong? Is it helpful? Is it helping or benefiting you in any way to hold this belief? Does it hold you back from trying things? Is there another way of looking at it? How about noticing the times when you got things right or when things worked out for you? Challenging limiting beliefs could result in new, more positive and realistic beliefs like this. I could try to do that. I know I find interviews hard, so I need to prepare really well. It's worth trying if it's something that's important to me. Sometimes I get things wrong, and sometimes I get them right. If I fail, it will be hard, but I will survive. Asking for help is a sign of strength. We've now looked at all 10 of the building blocks of resilience. But what really holds it all together is appreciating your personal or character strengths. We all have different personal and character strengths that can support our resilience. We are not talking here about skills and talents, which are of course important. It's more about your personal or character strengths. These are the ones that impact on the way we think, how we feel and behave in our day-to-day lives. So for now, I'm going to ask you to identify one of your personal or character strengths. Just take a moment to think about it. What's coming to mind? Was that difficult? Were you able to think of a character strength that you have? In all of the time that I've been delivering this course face-to-face to groups of people, maybe 20 or more, that is the question they struggle with most. Because it's often so much easier to notice our weaknesses or our failings rather than our strengths. And it starts with giving yourself permission to acknowledge your strengths. The most common personal or character strengths that I've heard from the people attending the courses are loyalty, friendliness, kindness, enthusiasm, humour, or they've said that they are loving, trustworthy, reliable, organised, spiritual, just to name a few. What can you do to help you identify your strengths? Get to know yourself. When are you most interested or comfortable or energized? Reflect on situations that you've been in, life events you've experienced. What did you do to get through them? Think about how you treat others. How do you treat yourself? Imagine what your partner or your best friend would say your strengths are. And if you can't imagine, maybe be brave and ask them. Remember a few moments ago I asked you to think of one of your personal or character strengths. I hope you were able to do that. And if you did, the trick is not to stop there. Write it down. And every time you are brushing your teeth, think of another strength and write that down too, so that you create your own long list of strengths. Keep the list close to hand, and any day you're feeling a bit low in yourself, have a look through the list and remind yourself of just how strong you are. In summary then, acknowledging your personal strengths is really important because it helps support your resilience. It boosts your self-esteem, it increases your self-confidence, and supports your self-belief. Let's recap on this session on improving our resilience. Resilience is essential to our mental health and well-being. It is not fixed. We can learn to increase our resilience. Resilience improves through good self-care, increasing realistic thinking, and challenging negative or limiting beliefs. Identifying and acknowledging our strengths benefits and increases our resilience. Thank you for watching the final session of Minding Your Wellbeing. I hope you found the program useful and that it encourages you to take positive steps to minding your own well-being. If you would like to view any of the sessions again, or for further information about mental health supports, see yourmentalhealth.ie.